Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
And with so much hoopla being made, especially for those of us on the left, about a potential bus tour with Vice President Kamala Harris, Governor Tim Walz, heading to South Georgia. It's so monumental that everyone's freaking out about this, and we're here to talk about why that is. I'm on the phone with one of my very first guests when this show launched a year and a half ago, Keith McCants. Keith McCants is a Blue Dog Democrat. He is a former city councilman. He is Bryan County Democratic Party hierarchy. I mean, this guy, you are a hardworking, rural Georgian NRA member, small business owner, consultant, and you're the kind of guy that I know I can reach out to and say, let's talk about what's going on outside the blue bubbles in the state of Georgia. Keith, thanks for joining me this morning. I appreciate you doing that, man.
No problem, Roy. Anytime.
So when you heard that Kamala and Governor Walz were going to be hitting the road for a couple of days, touring around in a bus in the area of South Georgia, what were your initial thoughts?
My first thought was, it's about time.
Right.
It's about time. You know, it's been this been something that I've been praying for years, that a Democratic presidential candidate would come down to rural Georgia and campaign amongst the people down here. Because let me tell you, I mean, don't get me wrong, we all know about Metro Atlanta, and we all know that 2/3 of the state population resides in that area. Mm-hmm. But if you want to win this state as a whole, you just cannot rely on Metro Atlanta and the 5-6 cities outside of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. You have to go downstate. You have to go to Americus. You have to go to Tifton, Waycross, Douglas, Sandersville. You got to go to these places here as well. You know, there are a lot of Democratic voters in these areas, but for some reason, there's been this, as I call it, it's like a stereotype when you talk about rural areas, is that they're mostly white or they're conservative, and, you know, they're a bunch of men that ride tractors all day long. No, it's not. It's not like that. Rural Georgia is a very diverse area. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have our challenges, but we do have people down here that vote as well. And if Democrats was to start reaching out, case in point, look at 2020 when Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, and they won their two races largely in part that they campaigned down in Southwest Georgia. They went up to East Central Georgia, South Central Georgia, and they picked up a lot of vote down there. So when I first heard about Harris Walz coming to this area, I was like, hallelujah. Yeah. It's about time. It's about time. So I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
What's interesting to me is the selection of Tim Walz sort of, I feel like psychologically anyway, opened some doors for Democrats, maybe even in their own mind, that, oh my God, this guy fishes, he hunts. They call him the REI candidate. I don't know if you've seen that. They call him the REI candidate. So here, this guy from Minnesota, the Midwest, seems to have, born in Nebraska. He seems to have kind of reinvigorated a thought within the Democratic Party that, the flyover state part of the country actually has some Democrats as well, or Democrats can lay some claim to the sort of values that Republicans have taken ownership of the last 40 years that have always existed within a portion of the Democratic base too, and not just the white part of the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because when she first named him as her vice presidential pick, I was like, okay, I didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
I was more like Indy Bashir or Mark Kelly for Arizona. Mm-hmm. But when I looked at his background, I was like, you know what? He's a school teacher. He's a football coach.
Yep.
He's a former NRA member.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in a small town.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read that, and when I first heard him speak, especially at the DNC convention, I was like, she did right, because let's face it, he can go into these small communities, he can go into these smaller areas, and he can talk that lingo
Mm-hmm.
about rural America. It's hard work, patriotism. He can go into these areas, and he can appeal to not only just white male moderates, but also a lot of black male moderate voters as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when she made that pick, it was a textbook selection that she made. Now, don't get me wrong, Andy Beshear is a big name. Mark Kelly is a big name. Even Josh Shapiro, he's a big name. But he brings something different to the ticket. He brings that I'm an everyman, I'm an everyday guy.
Yeah.
He's somebody that who you would allow into your homes, and you can sit down and have a good time, drink a beer with, watch a football game. So that would help her tremendously. However, a lot is going to depend on where they deploy Governor Walz from now all the way up towards November. Because right now, you don't see a whole lot of him on television. You hear, you see J.D. Vance everywhere give these interviews. And I was thinking about this last night. I was like, where's Tim Walz? Why not he not doing interviews? Why he not doing this? Why he not doing that? They have to make him more available to the press, to give interviews, to have sit downs, because they need to capitalize on this moment, because it shows the rural population here that yes, Democrats have somebody who understands our values, our way of life. And also it blunts some of the San Francisco liberal, she don't know anything about us.
Coastal elite,
the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's so that pick, that was a great pick that she and her campaign made. However, as I was saying earlier, a lot is going to depend on where they deploy Governor Walz starting today all the way towards November.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to see how much they're going to do that with him. But yes, that was a fantastic pick.
So we're on with the chairman of the Bryan County Democratic Party. Is that current, or is that just a recent past? It's hard for me to keep up with Bryan County. All right, the current chairman of the Bryan County Democratic Party, Keith McCants, who has served admirably on city councils as well, and has done some political strategy, like a little bit of a side hustle. This guy works you got like 8 jobs, I feel like. Every time I talk to you, you've got a different job, and your list grows, I see on your Facebook profile. So I want to ask you about the black jobs quip, because it's something that Donald Trump has not just mistakenly said once at a debate, but then he went to the National Association of Black Journalists conference and repeated it when he was pressed about it. And Michelle Obama had a good clap back at the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Convention. But that's something that I feel like what Donald Trump's trying to dog whistle is that the agricultural, the processing, the manufacturing jobs out in rural parts of the country are the ones that are being taken from African American workers and given to illegal immigrants. You live in rural Georgia. What is the thought process? What is the reaction to the black job statement? And is there any reality to what's being claimed?
Well, the reaction to that is not good. It's not good at all. What he was getting, when I first heard it, I was like, what? But on the other hand, if you go to a lot of these small communities, the poultry plants employ a lot of young Black,
Mm.
females, young Black males,
Mm.
and they do have a few white workers there as well. But if you go to communities like where I'm at here in Bryan County, this county over in Evans County, they have Claxton Poultry.
Mm.
And Claxton Poultry is, you can say, majority Black as far as the workforce goes.
Mm.
So, but also a lot of these processing plants do have a lot of Mexican workers or Hispanics or however you want to call it.
All right.
They do have a large number of them working at the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just the processing plants, but they're also at these poultry facilities. You got to have these, workers go out here. You got to catch the product. You got to catch the chickens. You got to throw them in the cages. You got to load them up on a flatbed truck in the early hours, and then transport them over to the poultry plant where they're processed, and then and God knows what else what they have done to them. But what he was saying is that, the way I took it, and I talked to a few people about it, across Georgia, some of my young contacts. They didn't like that because it gave the impression that only Black people, only us are the only ones who work these type of jobs.
Yeah, I felt like it was kind of a dig at like low skill, low mental acuity kind of menial labor sort of jobs, and that he has affixed to only Black people.
I said the same thing because it's a narrow viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Is that look at me myself. My job, I'm in operations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is a Black job?
Right. That's it. Yeah. And no, I don't feel like he gets asked that enough. Like, what is a Black job? Talk to me about what a Black job is.
Exactly, and that's one of the things the Democrats still don't know how to fight with fire. They still don't know how to fight.
I gotta say, I was impressed when Michelle Obama used that, and actually, her entire speech was not "when they go low, we go high." She did not go high. She took the earrings off, asked somebody to hold on to her heels and went in.
Yeah, that was when I first heard that, I was like, okay. She finally had enough is enough.
Yeah, she's had enough.
She went at him. I like that, but that's the issue that the Harris campaign should highlight. What is a Black job? I never heard such a thing. Okay, what is a white job then? What is a Hispanic job?
Yeah.
He kind of put us in categories saying illegals are coming in and taking Black jobs. Uh-huh. The only jobs illegals do is field work. Yeah. They get out here in the field and they
right. And what does that remind us of? It's unreal. It's unreal that there's not enough connecting of the dots in my mind to paint the picture as clearly as it seems to be. I tell people all the time, sometimes if you want to understand what Donald Trump is thinking, just listen to him. Hey, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We want to talk about the voter registration cancellation portal and what's being said in South Georgia outside the metro Atlanta bubble about that. We're with Keith McCants, chair of the Bryan County Democratic Party, on The Ron Show, on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, ProgressiveVoices.com, or wherever you podcast. There are so many ways to engage this show. You can call us, 404-919-2725. If I don't answer, sometimes I do. You can always leave a comment about something you hear on the show. You can also follow the show on your preferred social media platforms at Ron Show ATL. That would be Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads. We're on with Keith McCants. He is the chair of the Bryan County Democratic Party. So we're talking about the Harris-Walz bus tour heading through South Georgia, outside the large blue bubble of Metro Atlanta, even some of the safe spots like Athens and Augusta, Columbus, Macon. The bus stop will stop in Savannah for what I'm sure will be a pretty big rally, but stopping in rural Georgia spots. So with the bus tour, we still don't know precise locations yet. They're being close to the vest on that. That's something that I'm sure that maybe the state party and some local county parties are working in coordination on. Are you hearing anything, or has there been any coordination or communication with you about what might transpire Wednesday and or Thursday, leading to the Savannah stop?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
I was listening yesterday to Quentin Fox.
Mm-hmm.
He's the principal deputy campaign manager for Harris Walz.
Right.
And he was Greg Bluestein from the AJC. I think it was him who asked him the question, where
they were pressing him.
Where going to go? Yeah.
Yeah, they were pressing him.
Yeah, he was like, I can't give it to you right now, but only thing that I have gotten was that she was going to be coming to Savannah Thursday evening for a rally.
Yeah.
The location, no one knows the location here in Savannah. I'm assuming it's going to be in Mark Arena.
Yeah,
or the Old Civic Center.
Yeah.
I've heard Savannah State University. So we don't know where the location is going to be. I know she's going to be in Savannah all day Wednesday. So that part I do know. But as far as stops, I don't have any new information on that. Hopefully I'll hear something by this afternoon or this evening. Because I'm very curious to see where are they going to go. I'm curious to see where they're going to go.
And I imagine the Secret Service has to do their job ahead of time. What happened in Butler, Pennsylvania here a couple of months ago has, I'm sure, ratcheted up their preparation efforts when you're looking especially at large potentially outdoor gatherings. My last question to you, you're chair of the Bryan County Democratic Party. We're on with Keith McCants. Down in rural Georgia, down in South Georgia, trying to get a feel of what the vibe's like in that area. Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State, had rolled out this voter deregistration website. And what are you guys on the ground in a county like Bryan County telling voters about their registration situation? What's voter registration looking like, and are you asking folks to be vigilant about them already being registered?
Yeah, we are. We're letting the people here know to please check your voter registration, because there was at one point there was a section, they took it down, but there was a section where anyone could go on that website and they could delete another person's voter registration without permission. It's just like me going in and, Ron Roberts, I'm going to delete his voter registration. Just like that, and without permission. And that was like that for a day. Now, how many people got deleted from that? That's the big question. And so to me, that was done on purpose. I don't care what no one says. I think they did it on purpose.
Oh, sure.
The website to do that looks identical to the main website, to the Secretary of State page. Everything on there is identical. The only difference is they had a area where you can look up a person's name, you can go in and delete that person's voter registration just like that, and they log out, and then that person don't know what happened or how he or she got deleted. But yeah, we've been telling people to keep your eye on your voter registration, because there are shenanigans going on right now as we speak. And so far, we haven't had anyone come to us to say, hey, I know something wrong with my voter registration. Can y'all help me? So far, I haven't had anyone come to me complaining that they are or their voter registration is no longer active. And so we are telling people to check on that. We're telling people, if you're going to vote by mail, as soon as you get your absentee ballot, mail it in, because the mail service over here in Georgia is slow. It's very slow.
Oh my gosh, no doubt about it. So you're saying that web portal had been pulled. I'm sitting here looking this up right now to see if it's been pulled. I know you can go to the website and you can get a form that you can fill out. I don't know if the portal itself is gone. I don't see any news that has actually been pulled, but I mean, you may be right, because like I said, I can only find where you can download the form and fill it out and mail it in now.
Yeah, that was on there, and to be honest with you, I didn't know it was like that until I had one of the members on the Democratic committee tell me about it, and I was like, oh man, what is this? So it caught on. The Secretary of State office got wind of it. They went in and made some changes, and it took that page down.
No, I found it. No, it's still there. Georgia voter cancellation request portal.
Okay, it's still up there then.
It's still there, yeah.
So they did not take it down then.
So you just got to keep telling people to be vigilant and check their status. And I've done that. I don't know if you've done that. I've done that. I've made sure that I'm still in there, so I'm still in there.
Yeah, I have. I bought my mail, but I may just go in person this time because I want my vote to count.
Yeah. Louis DeJoy has not exactly done a wonderful job with the USPS, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, Keith McCants, Bryan County Democratic Party Chair. Thanks for joining me on the Ron Show today, and good to catch up with you, my man.
Yeah, Ron. Anytime, man. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Donald Trump's repugnant Arlington Cemetery photo op. We'll discuss that next here on The Ron Show.
Want to be on the show? Have a cause or campaign you'd like to speak up for? Email Ron at ronshowatl.com or call 404-919-2725. The Ron Show on America One Radio.
I am fortunate that being raised in a military family just outside the gates of the current Fort Eisenhower, formerly Fort Gordon outside Augusta, Georgia, I'm fortunate in that my grandfather and my uncle both served in the Army admirably and did not lose their lives in combat or in service. But I can only imagine the sort, and as angry as I was yesterday, as miffed as I felt, just as someone in the periphery of the military community felt, to watch as Donald Trump flatly took advantage. I don't even know how to tap dance around this. Flatly took advantage of the marking of the third year passing of the Abbey Gate suicide bombing in Afghanistan that took 13 American service members' lives. I can only imagine the sort of anger it must convey to anyone who stops and thinks about the full breadth of this man and his disrespect for those who do serve, have served, those who were POWs. Remember, he likes those that don't get caught. The suckers and losers comment that was confirmed by his chief of staff, John Kelly, at the time. I can only imagine the sort of anger that courses through someone who saw this photo op event yesterday at Arlington National Cemetery, where Donald Trump apparently had been invited to participate in this solemn occasion to mark the passing. It conjured up a lot of questions like, first of all, why does Arlington Cemetery allow these sort of political staging events to happen? And it turns out that's not exactly what was going on. He was sort of piggybacking on an event that was already taking place, and that private wreath-laying events at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier or elsewhere on the grounds at Arlington National Cemetery are allowed when coordinated through the Park Service. Nonetheless, it's hard not to, and I realize I'm a cynic, and I realize we're in the heat of a political cycle. It's just that guy, that particular political candidate, that particular human being with a CVS receipt length record of digs and disgust at veterans who've lost limbs. Remember, he doesn't want to be seen photographed with them. How anyone doesn't see it for what it is just kind of gross. But as angry as I was about it, I wasn't nearly as angry as Brad Berkowitz, who is a Navy veteran, served for more than 2 decades. He hosts his own podcast called The Bad Brad Berkowitz Show. He took to social media yesterday, and bear with me, there's going to be a lot of beeping out. I just choose not to let, the F-bombs go through just because I don't know who's hearing this, and I don't know who wants to share this with folks who might just be a little taken aback by this sort of language. But I think you can understand the sort of anger that this Navy veteran felt when he saw this photo op yesterday.
As a veteran who served for 20 years and 28 days during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the Gulf War, and the Iraq War, retired honorably, and have upheld my oath every day since September 30th, 2006, my retirement day. But on this day, a fucking treasonous traitor who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th, 2021, a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, liable for fraud, degenerate, misogynistic pig, lying grifter who pushed Bibles and now pushing books about bullshit, was allowed to go to Arlington National Cemetery on no special day and lay a wreath. What the fuck and who in the fuck allowed this motherfucker to do that shit and defecate on our fallen soldiers that are buried there? You heard what I said, defecate. And you motherfucking maggot motherfucking veterans that are okay with this treasonous traitor, as I said, your fucking service means nothing, because the oath that I took and the oath that you took, you shit it out. But I want to know who the allowed this motherfucker to go today and lay this wreath for a fucking photo op at the expense of our fallen brothers and sisters. You fucking right, I'm pissed off. This motherfucker has no fucking low. Fuck every single motherfucker that walks this planet that supports this rotten motherfucker.
I don't think he liked that Trump went to Arlington and took photos with the thumbs up at the grave. Oh my gosh. It's like cringy stuff, man. Ugh. Here's the thing, though. There is a regulation. And if you go to arlingtoncemetery.mil/visit/events, yada, yada, yada. I can give you the link if you like. A group may honor U.S. veterans and members of the armed forces by laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Public wreath ceremonies are limited to one group per day with a maximum of 4 participants in the ceremony. The wreath for the ceremony is provided by the participants. So it's allowed. And there's just not a lot you can do about that. It's just jarring that the guy who doesn't want to, while in office, be seen alongside those who lost limbs or were badly wounded in action, calls those who served suckers and losers, according to his own chief of staff. It's just jarring that in the heat of a presidential race that he's desperately seeking to win to avoid prison, that commemorating the 3-year anniversary of the Abbey Gate suicide bombing was his opportunity to politicize not only that event, but a sacred place on American soil. Not on Veterans Day, not on Memorial Day, on this particular day, for that particular horrific event, and clearly to politicize it. Clearly. I mentioned yesterday on the show that former Trump National Security Advisor, Foreign Policy Advisor, General H.R. McMaster, had just released a book, a blistering account of his time in the Trump White House and all the dysfunction that went with it. The book is called At War with Ourselves. He was on with Anderson Cooper yesterday discussing not only the book, but the 3-year anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombing and Trump's culpability in the dysfunction of the exit. I've been saying this, y'all. Been saying this for nearly 3 years myself, but his own national security advisor goes on the record and says, Trump bears a lot of responsibility here.
Trump bear part of the responsibility for what happened?
Oh, yes. I mean, so the whole premise of talking to the Taliban before you leave Afghanistan, why the heck were we even doing that?
He was going to invite them to Camp David.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans onto the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump administration
withdraw.
forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stop the active targeting of the Taliban, which President Trump, again to his credit in 2017, had restored because he was convinced, like, how the heck does this make any sense? To give your enemy a timeline for your withdrawal and then say, now I'm going to negotiate a favorable settlement? I mean...
So it raises the question about the atmosphere within the White House, which you write a lot about. The portrait you paint of dysfunction in the White House from a sort of management perspective is pretty alarming. You say Trump pitted people against each other instead of building collaborative teams. You say it was an administration at war with itself. Do you have any reason to believe that if there's another Trump administration, that it would be any different? Because doesn't that tone get set by the commander-in-chief?
Well, you know, as a historian, too, Anderson, I realized that was not unprecedented, right? So one of the things that gave me solace as I was in that position was that think about the first Reagan administration, how tumultuous that was. And so I knew that this was really nothing new. It happens in all administrations. But in the Trump administration, I think everything was magnified.
Here's the thing. Again, being someone who grew up in the periphery of military life, military family, my uncle served in the Army for 3 decades. My grandfather, World War II, the Korean War, served domestically during the Vietnam War here at home in support. Having, friends who served in the military, family members, neighbors, friends that are still serving. I have a friend who he is a Marine lifer. God bless him. It just really pisses me off. It pisses me off when people are played. Much the same way it pisses me off, having been raised in the Baptist church, the Southern Baptist church, and even being married for 10 years into a family of Pentecostal congregational holiness. I think that's what they're called. It just pisses me off that people's emotions are played upon in such a way, and we can joke, and it's not a joke. We can mock this man's simple-mindedness. I mean, I kind of think he's on the spectrum, honestly, just undiagnosed. We didn't have spectrums back then. We didn't have spectrums when I was a kid. But this guy's definitely not right, and he doesn't have sharp vocabulary. He's not the smartest man, although he'd have you believe otherwise. Big words, et cetera, and so on. The best people, et cetera, and so on. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but there's something kind of cold and calculating, and I don't know if it's just instinct or what. There's something innate, maybe, in the way he's brought up. I can't put my finger on it, but there is something evil genius-y about his ability to manipulate people who I guess can be easily manipulated. That's the only thing I can surmise, that while he's not a bright man, he's really good at manipulating people who are easy to be manipulated. I'm the guy who grew up, again, in a military family. We went to July 4th at the Fort Gordon, what was the name? Barton Field. I was the kid who was so goosebumpy about the Signal Corps band and playing all the, Independence Day music and fanfare and the fireworks, and I got swept up in that stuff. And I guess I'm a little bit more of a cynic now, but I still respect those who serve in the military, and I really have immense respect and deep gratitude to those who put their lives on the line in theaters of war, who sacrifice the ability to just decide where you want to live. When you're in the military, you don't get to do that. You're at the whim of other people There's so much sacrifice beyond just the loss of life and limb that I can't. It just drives me absolutely batshit that a man who has absolutely no respect for those who made that answer to the call to serve, who himself had his dad get a doctor to write him an excuse out of service in Vietnam, bone spurs, remember? That he thinks he can just show up at Arlington Cemetery and lay a wreath on a date, a specific date, and this specific date for politically calculating reasons actually affects people in a positive way. It really does bother me. It just does. It bothers me. Now, we can sit here and talk about how President Biden mishandled the Afghanistani exit. That's fine. That's fine. There's culpability there. I'm not going to sit here and deny it, but I'm not going to sit here and say either or be quiet while this plotting oaf who laid the groundwork for an awful exit is going to play up the anniversary of the day 13 American service members died by showing up on that particular date at Arlington Cemetery to lay a wreath for a purely political reason, not to honor them, but to contrast himself and how he'd like folks to perceive his pure innocence, his having no role whatsoever in that loss of life, in contrast with his current political rivals. It's absolute bullshit, as Bad Brad said many times. My God, my finger was sore from hitting the button. But it is. It's absolute bullshit. And I'm going to call it out every damn time. All right, the single biggest issue no candidate has been talking about until just recently. What it is and what's being done about it, we cover next. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio and Progressive Voices. Final few minutes of The Ron Show. Today is the 104th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Supreme Court, giving women the right to vote. So I know I was mentioning that I was going to talk about the housing initiative Kamala Harris rolled out, and I will in just a minute, but I got to share with you this minute or so video. I'll give you the audio, obviously, because you're listening and not watching, that the Seneca Project rolled out this morning on the anniversary. The Seneca Project is what they call themselves to be a bipartisan super PAC led by women dedicated to mobilizing women voters in key swing states in support of Kamala Harris this election. But they are a bipartisan super PAC, they say, focusing on safeguarding women's rights, healthcare access, and the preservation of democracy. They say they are galvanizing this crucial demographic to vote and to vote off the extreme MAGA agenda. Here is that video they rolled out this morning.
In July 1848, courageous women came together in Seneca Falls, New York, to start a movement. They dared to fight against treatment as second-class citizens. After decades of struggle, women fought and won the right to vote, to work without discrimination, to control our bodies, to even open bank accounts without the permission of a man. Each one was a triumph against those who believed we didn't deserve them. Well, today, those hard-fought victories are under attack. Donald Trump and his allies are determined to send us back to a time when we had no say, no freedom, no choice.
I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do we want a future where our daughters have fewer rights than our grandmothers? Where their bodies are state property? Their voices silenced? Their opportunities erased? We say hell no. We won't go back. This November, we must take back what is ours. For ourselves, for our daughters, and for the pioneers of Seneca Falls. It's up to us.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment.
Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff. As is the new Kamala Harris ad that rolled out this morning that touts her housing initiative.
For most of my childhood, we were renters. My mother saved for well over a decade to buy a home. I was a teenager when that day finally came, and I can remember so well how excited she was. I know what home ownership means, and sadly right now it is out of reach for far too many American families. During the foreclosure crisis, I took on the big banks who exploited people in the housing market. And today, corporate landlords buy hundreds of houses and apartments, then turn them around and rent them out at extremely high prices. I will fight for a law that cracks down on these practices.
Good.
We will end America's housing shortage by building 3 million new homes and rentals. We should be doing everything we can to make it more affordable to buy a home, not less. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
So I will co-sign on that. As a residential real estate agent who has been working in that field for the last 5 years, in one of the hottest real estate markets in the country, but also a market that has, of course, grown exponentially, essentially, in the last 40 years, I can attest to the issues that she seeks to address and that need to be addressed. And a lot of them have been exacerbated. I have people ask me all the time, well, why is it that, why is it so hard to buy a house right now? You have to think. In fact, I had a situation. This is kind of the disconnect. I had a situation a week ago where I had some buyers who wanted to submit an offer on a house that had just been on the market a couple of days for like $475,000. They wanted to submit an offer for under asking price, and they also wanted a good chunk of money back in closing costs, but they also wanted not to close on the house until December. Listen, in my calmest, nicest way, I told these folks, you're out of your mind. First of all, you're offering less than asking price. You also want money back in closing costs in a desirable area of Metro Atlanta, and you want the homeowner to sit and wait for 3 months to close. After the last 25 years of unpredictable things that nobody could see coming around the corner. We didn't see 9/11. We didn't see the recession that followed. We didn't see the housing crisis and the recession that followed. We didn't see the pandemic and the recession that followed. No one's going to sit on a house for that long. It was just asinine. And we disagreed on that and went our different ways, whatever. My point is, there are many reasons why even home builders are skittish about extending themselves or overextending themselves and being caught flat-footed or underfunded when the next unpredictable thing that's around the corner hits. We've had those three things in the last 25 years, and they've all affected housing starts and why we are 4 to 6 million homes behind where we need to be now. I personally believe like an FDIC for home builders should exist. We should have some sort of a federal agency that is there, that's there to guarantee their fiscal solvency for a foreseeable future. I don't know how long that should be, or if it should be forever. I don't know. But I do know that home builders who are leery about building should feel less concerned about the next what if that comes around the corner. I also happen to co-sign where she talks about the private investors and the private equity firms who snap up tons of homes in older neighborhoods and larger cities, usually historically black as well, and hold on to them, rent them out for as long as they want, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and then turn around and sell them, having not only made money off the renters, but off the equity as well to cash in a situation where the demand is so high and the supply is so low that they profit twice off that house on the backs of homeowners who have the dwindling supply to pick from, which means the price is higher and the interest rates are what they are right now. That's another factor that hopefully will start to address itself in the near future. I've said for many months now, the housing situation is the one political conversation that nobody was having in this election cycle, and thank goodness it's our side that's having this conversation. It's long overdue. And for those who are like, well, why didn't she do anything about it while she's vice president? Well, there's a thing called Congress. The Republicans have held the House for 2 years, and we didn't have a filibuster-proof Senate at all in the last 4 years. So there's that. It's just something that we have to remember when we're voting down ballot in states that have Senate races, and every state has House races in all the congressional districts every 2 years. That's going to do it for The Ron Show. I want to thank Keith McCants, Bryan County Democratic Party Chair, for joining me. Show notes at ronshowatl.com. Back tomorrow, 9 to 10 a.m. and 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio and 7 to 8 p.m. on Progressive Voices or wherever you podcast. Thank you for listening.